Coogs house. They say don't let the Cougs get hot, but after two four-star commits over the weekend, that seems to be exactly what Willie Fritz's staff just did.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. Whether a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Appreciate you making your first listen each and every day. You're Locked On Cougs. If you want to join the conversation, but you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below. Much like I asked Coach Fritz last week at Big 12 Media Days, what kind of tortilla you put your tacos in. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. We got more on that fun later, but the best place to get last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Do all sporting events. And the sporting event to be watching that isn't really ticketed right now is the Houston Cougar recruiting show. I want to talk about Jayden Warren, Jay Boogie, and Melvin Jr. Some in the first segment here. I want to know what comes next for the Cougs in the second segment as well. And then third, final segment, we talk about some Houston Cougar swag and some fun stuff happening on that end. But first, I guess I should go in the order of the way these two things happened. Melvin committed to the Houston Cougars on Friday. The 175-pound athlete has just so much wiggle. He's fantastic hands, fantastic footwork. He could be a running back and a pass-happy offense, a slot, and a 3 and 4 wide offense. If you're more of a running team, you can play a corner or a lockdown guy on the interior or the exterior. He really can do a lot of different things. And listen, he was down to Houston, Baylor, Arizona, and Ole Miss. I was going back and forth with the guy at Locked On Ole Miss show, Stephen Willis, and we kind of came to the consensus. He's like Percy Harvin level of flexibility positionally, right? With how he does things. He can really fit in anywhere in offense. You can kind of build your scheme around getting an athlete like him the ball in space and creating mismatches and kind of spinning everything else off of that. On defense, if you're going to put him he'd probably just get listed as a defensive back, and he could play interior corner, exterior corner, free safety, a lot of different things. One thing's for certain, the first 5 plays of his junior season high school highlight tape are running back punts and kickoff returns. He's got to be involved in the return game. Melvin is a game changer, and he's a Houston freaking Cougar, right? Awesome get from Cy Springs for Willie Fritz and company. The other big get, though, came on Sunday, and Jayden Warren, the 6'2" wide receiver, he's top 25 consensus in the state, a top 25 receiver in the nation consensus. Some people have him high, obviously. He was at the time the top ranked uncommitted wide receiver in the class of 2026. He is coming to the Houston Cougars after telling the reporters at 24/7 Live on their channel Sunday night, Sunday being 7-1-3, shouts to 7-1-3 day over the weekend. He also plays basketball, and I don't want to diminish his basketball talent, but Jayden Warren has legitimate, could project to Olympic type of track speed. Went 10-1 in the 100. That is freaking blazing, right? His Iowa Colony 4x1 and 4x4 team both set state records in the 5A division of the relays. Really impressive athlete in that sense. He's not just a straight line runner. He does have good route running, does have good hands, but that kind of immediate speed does take the top off of every defense in the Big 12. He commented, because he was speaking 24/7 in person, over virtually, but as it was live when he committed. that Houston checked the most boxes. It's the hometown, having that village that you talk about when you're like raising people, whatever. Having that village and being close to home was important. Houston was his one of his three finalists. The other two were SMU and TCU. He mentioned, I thought it was interesting, that he wants to go into like medicine. He mentioned athletic training a couple different times. His mom works at MD Anderson right there in town. Mentioned that Keyshawn Henderson, who per Instagram from Keyshawn, was at the commitment ceremony. Keyshawn played a big role in this as he was there for that official visit day when both Paris and Jayden came to visit after Keyshawn had just shut down his recruitment, right? Really impressive pairing of guys here for Houston over the weekend. And I cannot stress enough, like, these are two guys that every program in America would be ecstatic to have commit, and they both chose to stay home for Fritz and the Houston Cougars. That is leaps and bounds different from anything we've seen out of the staff out of this program in a long, long time. Keyshawn obviously sparked it in a big way. We've talked about him and his loyalty to Fritz and company ad nauseum, but this is really, really impressive that it gets for these guys. I think you probably put Paris in kind of a offensive weapon category and let him play some slots, some running back, some H, some whatever. I initially think of Jayden Warren as an outside receiver because it makes the defense respect the go route every single time. But regardless, they will fit into this offense in a beautiful kind of way with Keyshawn taking snaps. Houston, after the Jayden Warren commitment, I say after because things may change over the course of Monday, depending on who commits where and so on. Houston had the second highest average recruit ranking in the Big 12. That means, like, take the total, divide by the number you got here, and you figure that out because you have so many high rank recruits. The second highest in the Big 12, the 21st in the country for average recruit ranking. Houston only presently has 14 commitments. I do think more are coming in the coming days and weeks. And the staff certainly, the people inside things certainly feel like that's coming as well. But in terms of offensive weapons, pass catchers, it is kind of crazy to me, right, that like in a couple years' time, Kobe Young, who projects to be the underclassman that'll get the most snaps at wide receiver this year, will be like a veteran for this group of guys. Kobe's got his own tremendous route running ability, really great speed, really great like seizing of the ball type of hands. I saw a little bit of flashes of him last year, but didn't get featured a whole lot. And looking forward to a longer career now. The offense is changing up in the future. But you have Paris is that wiggle kind of guy, the guy that opens things up as far as they have to bracket coverage him. They can't just have a single guy on him. You've got Jayden Warren taking the top off. In this 2026 class, you already had Kevon Roberts at a Port Arthur Memorial, who like at 6'4" wins a lot of jump ball in the end zone kind of stuff. You already had Jeremiah Bushnell, who is listed at 6'1", but then you watch it. First of all, you watch the high school highlight tape in basketball. That dude can go up and get an oop too. He does the same kind of stuff on the football field, going and winning jump balls as well. So Bushnell adds another layer to this. Just an incredible group of weapons at Houston for 5-star quarterback Keyshawn Henderson to use when it's his turn, to use for Slade Nagel to get to deploy at his will. The offense is turning back into that electric Houston Cougar offense we know it to be, right? Like, we think of Houston as a team, Keenum, Ward, go back to Andre Ware. Like, people think of Houston and offenses and creativity and scoring points. That's what the class of 2026 cemented itself as being able to do after a tremendous recruiting weekend. Now, it does sound like some of these were these silent commitment types that might have happened a while back and just got publicized over the weekend in kind of more formal ways. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't as special as it could have been. And we're going to talk more about some other recruiting news and updates in just 1 second. Before we get too far, I do want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to get tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Summertime, Astros, comedy shows, concerts. You're trying to find ways to get indoors, get out of the heat, get to go do something. The thing you want to go do, have tickets. Those tickets are on Game Time. Game Time makes getting into the concert, show, or whatever faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime or first pitch. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last minute deals. I love when they have like in that venue or the type of event from that row and section, you see exactly what you're looking at. So you know what kind of obstruction you might have for the venue or whatever. You kind of know what you're getting into. You also know you're getting the best all-in price because there are no hidden fees. So you can toggle the deal to show exactly what you're paying at checkout for each seat. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download Game Time at Grand Account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Parker Ainsworth, Locked on Coogs here, doing more recruiting updates after the big recruiting weekend that Houston just had. And listen, I don't mean to sell anyone short. I do think, though, Houston is hoping to not be done adding offensive weapons. Davian Groce is a 6'1", 190-pound athlete out of Frisco Lone Star High School. I think he's a more natural offensive player. You could tell me he's a safety as well, but I think he's more of that that big-bodied receiver that just you can't yet. He just boxes out too well on a slant route kind of guy. He went, for what it's worth, he went out of his way when 24/7 posted his top 3 to retweet and correct them that Houston was actually in his top 4 and that he had a top 4 at the time. The guy's an absolute difference maker. Some places have him as a 5-star, some places have him as a 4. He is very much still in the mix. We'll see where he commits this month and see what he ends up doing. Heard the name Lakeyleon Graves a lot more. Frankly, if I'm going to be honest, I saw someone tweeted out, so I started diving into a little bit more, and people said, no, like he's really considering Houston very highly. He's a 6'2", 185-pound athlete, was an all-state guy at the 7-on-7 tournament last month. He plays a bunch of different spots on offense. I could see him being another wide-outy type body. I could also see him, 6'2", 185 to get up to 215 by the time you're a sophomore, junior, and kind of be more of an H-back type guy. For what it's worth, he is high on Houston, got the offer on May 1st, was tweeting about strength for Coach Kurt Hester and the fight against cancer and this kind of thing. Like he's been involved in those kinds of things with social media throughout. So he very much feels connected to Houston, people seem to think that he's leaning into this kind of H-Town wave. Lakeyleon Grave is from Kilgore, Texas. So it's not quite like Iowa Colony or Cy Springs, but it's obviously not far away either. And so I think that does play a role for him as well. It's a good Big 12 opportunity with this growing momentum in his backyard in a lot of way. The big fella, though, and that's where I get into this a little bit. Look, I was going back and forth with the guys, recruiting experts, one of the guys I talked to about things, and I was like, hey, like Houston's getting hot. I sent them both my shorts on the Houston weekend, both Paris and Jayden, and he said, yeah, but offensive line, defensive line recruiting is what defines every program. I copy and paste. That's the quote here. And he's right. At the end of the day, offensive linemen make up half of your offense. I don't think people fully grasp that. Like, you get 11 players in the field, at least 5 of them are offensive line body types, right? You need those guys at all times. And it's also like the ultimate weakest link spot. They work in such a congruent fashion that if one of those 5 is a weak spot, you got a problem. Houston's done a pretty good job with Aaron Wolford in the class, 6'4", 290-pound, interior offensive lineman, Port Neches Grove kid, tough guy. Tough mug over there from Port Neches Grove. Troy Pless, 6'5", 295, great athlete for 295. from Colleen Shoemaker, big and strong kid, but guys could bend as well. I really like, and I really hope they land Pelulete Primus. I call him Primus, but Pelulete Primus from Midland, Texas. He is a giant. He's got Houston in his top three. He also has Vanderbilt and Washington, three dramatically different schools. We talked to Brian Smith on an earlier episode of Locked On Cougs about how different those three schools are. I like Pelulete Primus, though, because he is that, like, could be a road grading type of interior offensive lineman if you needed him to be. Dude is just a big, big wedge that just moves forward all the time. Think big old Midland type kids, right? And truthfully, I really like. I think Houston's got a real shot at him. I can't get a whole lot of intel or insight. If you've got any, obviously you can DM me at Painsworth512 on Twitter. But I really feel like Houston's got a shot here, just because they're the in-state school compared to Washington, which is so far away, or Vanderbilt. And while Washington and Vanderbilt in the Big Ten and SEC respectively, I do think they're kind of different. That Washington is a brand new Big Ten school, so far away, new coaching staff about 18 months ago. And then Vanderbilt's kind of it is an SEC school, but it's also kind of like got its own thing going in its own kind of ways too. And so Houston being in the mix there is a big, big deal. And look, if Houston were to land Primus, Groce, and Graves all in the same couple weeks here, those three guys on their own might be enough to launch Houston to the top class in the Big 12 and ultimately like one of the top classes in the nation. Those are three talented guys. I'm not saying they can or will land all three. I don't know how realistic that is. I do think they've got a realistic shot at each of those guys, but like if you hit on your pair in blackjack three times, you don't always win every time, right? Like I think that there's a chance they win all three. Winning all three would be like, this is the best class in Houston Cougar history, right? Like that's a big game changing kind of thing. I just don't know how realistic it is to get all three. I do know that like on the defensive line side of things, they're also looking at a kid named Cameron Christian from Kilgore, Texas. Can you get both Cameron and Lakeyleon both from Kilgore? Like, can you pull them in together? Now that you've got your wide receiver type guys, can you talk to Davian Groce? But hey, like, listen, like we're gonna have a lot. Someone's got to be open. Come be the guy, right? Like, can you figure those kinds of things out? On the defensive line side of things, Caleb Walker and Xavier Fleming might not be because there's only two of them. People might have wanted 4, 5, and 6 defensive linemen or whatever. And I'm here to say that I think that they see those two guys as being kind of a continuation of 2025 kids getting a redshirt and 2024 kids that'll be like redshirt sophomores when they start playing together. They're kind of building a group here that's going to be large in numbers, and with the red shirts and so on, they only needed a couple of defensive lineman type guys. So when trying to build a class out here, I think that there's lots of things to be excited about as things move on. Obviously, as more things happen, we're going to be here at Locked On Cougs with the latest each and every day. Before we get too far, though, I do want to talk about some new entrepreneurial spirit, some swag type of things happening with the University of Houston. And without further ado, let's jump into that 1 second. From a pair of big-time future Cougars to an alumni himself, the entrepreneur looking to put Houston Cougar logos on everywhere you want to put them, I guess, in a different kind of way. Frederick of Section 12X. Frederick, I ask a weird, funky food question all the time. When it comes to tortillas and your tacos, you a flour guy or a corn guy?
I'm flour all the way.
Flour all the way.
Flour all the way.
One thing that's a little bit spicier, and that was my attempt at a segue, is your attempt to kind of take down a lot of the bigger brands, the rollbacks of the world and those kind of things, and help put Houston on caps like we've got on for the visual audience here. Polos coming soon, all at section12x.com. Tell me a little bit about the void you saw as a Cougar fan alumni and how you sought to fix that, because It's a fun brand with fun logos and branding that kind of takes you back to a more nostalgic time.
Yeah, it really started probably, I guess for me, probably about 2 years ago. And I started seeing some collegiate gear hit the market that wasn't really available to UH or even, I mean, the masses, college fan bases. So it was very select, very few colleges that had some of these brands or some of these polos or designs available to them, and maybe not to others. And then early last year, I started seeing even more of it expand to some of U of H's, I guess, similar schools out there, other Big 12s, some in the ACC. And I was like, man, why don't we have anything like this? What's going on? What's happening with our licensing? Is there an issue there? Or is it, is it just the companies want to focus on specific brands only? And I was like, man, there's gotta be something here, right? And I started seeing more and more fans on Twitter, on the message board, just saying, "Where's our cool stuff? Like, what do we need to do to get some UH gear? High quality, really cool prints." And I was like, man, maybe there's something to this. Let's see what I can do here. And I've for a long time, probably the last 10 years, I've put together stupid memes, GIFs, or just really terrible Photoshop things, and posted on Twitter or message boards. And that's how it kind of started. I just put together some really terrible Photoshop images of different prints and posted a couple online. And I really didn't think anything of it, but I was like, hey, we should have something like this. And got a lot of really good feedback, honestly. The people were like, hey, take my money. Where can I buy that? We need something like that. And I was like, well, that's a pretty good feedback. And then I put another few together and very similar feedback. And from there, I just kind of ran with it. And that's where I was like, you know what, maybe there's an actual opportunity here to address this gap that, some of these other bigger brands have for other schools that maybe they don't have for us. And I kind of alluded to it on my other video, but like literally it was just one thing after the other. And next thing you know, I'm opening up a business. But it's been a wild journey though. Wild journey. And to your point, we're wearing our first two caps right now. Appreciate the support there. But my goal really is to bring unique designs and patterns that even maybe some of the other big brands aren't going to bring out. Maybe they'll bring something out, but my goal is to elevate what they're going to do, and really bring that true UH sense to it. The hard work that goes into it. It's not just another label or another logo on a generic polo that any school can use. It's truly a UH polo design, UH hat design, with obviously our logos and whatnot on it. And so that's kind of what we're doing. We're just doing stuff that really hasn't been done in the market for U of H before, and things that have been done in the market. We're just going to elevate what other people have done.
Well, and over on Instagram, you're also going to be telling your own story here, so I don't mean to step on your toes. I will say, though, there were some heartstrings plucked when the palm trees popped up in the logo. You can't really see it from my headphones here, but the logo on the side of the hat has the palm tree sticking up, and I'm sure there'll be more on that and all that content. So make sure you go check out Section 12X on Instagram for all of that. But is there a reason I like the old school. Again, for the folks that hadn't heard before, I'm a history teacher by day. That's kind of my jam. You lean into the old school logos, though. I've got the old school golf logo on my hat. You've got the marching cougar on yours. Is the thought that that's the angle you want to take with the whole brand, or what's the thought behind being old school early?
Yeah, so it was kind of funny. Someone actually asked me if I was trying to be another brand that does a lot of vintage logos. I was like, no. Like, I'm not trying to be just a vintage brand. But I think there's a huge gap with vintage logos with U of H, right? And so what we typically see is just I'm not wearing this one, but just the standard UH logo, or the Houston or the Cougars in the script, and not a whole lot of vintage. And me personally, I love the vintage logos. I think they're really, really neat. And I wanted to find a way to utilize those as much as possible. But that said, we will have just regular, current UH logos with some of the stuff we're launching here pretty shortly, mixed with some vintage. So we're going to try to do a little bit of both with everything that we do, and it's really all about what's the design that I'm trying to go for, and how does it look? Does it, if I can put together as 1,000 vintage prints and designs and they all look great, guess what? The fans are going to get 1,000 prints of vintage stuff. Or if it's just 1,000 like of the current ones, but it's elevated versus just like a solid red polo with our logo slapped on it. So like I'm trying to do some unique things there where it makes sense, but I always want to stay true to my roots of whatever I do, it's forward themed. So you'll get a good mix. Get a good mix.
You mentioned you went through I don't want to say the hoops and hurdles as if it's not appropriately, but all the things you had to do to get the licensing, right? Were the vintage logos more challenging? I would think that there's got to be some reason that other people aren't leaning into this because they do look really cool. And I think they're kind of striking that, baggy pants are back in. People are going back to things that look like the 90s and the 80s all over the place. Things come back. Were those harder to get, or are you just the only one out there getting it for people?
Can't really say, to be honest with you. I just know my experience, my conversation with U of H and the marketing team. I clearly showed them what my vision was for my brand, for the future, what I was looking to do for UH, and obviously generating revenue for them. And I will say not everything is licensable, right? So there are some things that we can use that we can't use. So it's really just kind of at sole discretion of what they have in their book right now, or what they're looking to do with their brand. So it's hard for me to say, is it more challenging or easier, than some other brands? But my experience with UH licensing has been great. They've been really great to work with, both Affinity and UH themselves. Just sharing ideas back and forth and seeing what's working. And honestly, I've had some designs rejected that I thought were really neat, that I got great feedback just initially, just on the design, but totally understand the reasoning by rejecting them. So it's not going to stop us. We're gonna continue pushing forward and utilizing what we can, and make sure we get some great content out there for you.
Yeah, when has a rejection ever stopped a Houston Cougar? So talk to me a little bit, Frederick, about, without giving the secrets away, giving the game away, because I know you're going to preview stuff on those Instagram videos and content you're pushing out on the 12X Instagram page. Polos, what is coming out this fall? Are we looking at like game day attire, tailgate attire? What are you going with?
Yeah, so we will be starting with 3 polos, and they're all completely different designs. So I don't want to give too much into that, but we will have 3 to start with.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
And I will caveat, supplies will be semi-limited. We are a brand new company, but so I'll say just make sure you're ready to click that button if you're interested in them, because I think the fans will really enjoy what we have. But that'll be the first launch here in August, and then as far as a pipeline goes, we will have more lined up for the fall. Don't really want to give more into that, okay, but let's just say it's more cooler weather stuff that we will have lined up.
All right. That's as hinty as hints can be dropped here. All right. Last question. And then remember, there's section12x.com for your gear, section 12x on Instagram and Twitter. I still call it Twitter, for all kind of information and updates. And they're going to be posting updated content videos on the Section 12X Instagram feed as well. Frederick, I wear the hat myself, get a lot of good comments and feedback on it. I had it on my display at Media Days. I've had people comment on those videos, and I've had people mention there at that day, like, oh, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? Right? Section12x.com, section12x.com. That's all I'm saying, right? I saw Alan Bishop had a hat on today on Twitter. I didn't. Has there been a moment where someone had it on, a cool moment as an, because this is not just a business for you, right? This is a passion project too. Has there been a cool moment where you're like, oh man, so-and-so likes my stuff?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's just all of the all the feedback that I've received, that, whether they're somebody affiliated with U of H, somebody just a fan, I mean, you name it. I mean, seeing orders come in from California all the way over to Maine. It's really neat to see that Cougar Nation really is nationwide. But yeah, just seeing a couple people affiliated with UH, whether it's on their radio show, obviously you support it really well, which is great. Over at the Veer, there's a lot of support there, and then just other people, just kind of sharing their stories, sending me one-off messages or emails saying, they really appreciate the quality and the new take on some of our swag that we've got. So I think it's just the general embrace that the UH fan base has shown. It means a lot. I wasn't really sure, how these would do, or really where this was going to go when I first launched it. So just hearing all the great feedback has been tremendous. So
keep the feedback rolling. Go to section12x.com. Grab your cap today with more things to get on the way. So make sure you check out 12x on your social media platforms as well. Frederick, thank you for stopping by, and go Cougs, man. Go Cougs.
Yeah, thanks. Go Coogs.